Hi there everybody, my name is Kate and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. Let's talk about some unpleasant stuff. That seems to be where I spend most of my time these days, talking about unpleasant stuff, because there's a lot of unpleasant stuff that's happening on the planet right now. This is a timeless message, they all are. However, at the current time, we're going into holidays, we're going into times where we might be called to spend time with our family, family of origin, or whatever we call family, whatever we might feel very bound to go and spend time with, in some, unspoken agreement that we may or not fully agree with. Specifically, I'm talking about what's been brought to my attention in the download that I received recently, was the story of Cain and Abel from the Bible. The story of Cain and Abel, they're brothers, right? And they're the descendants of Adam and Eve, the children of Adam and Eve. They're brothers. And Cain, he is into growing things in orchards. He bears fruit, right? Literally fruit. And Abel is into livestock. He has flocks of whatever he has. This is just a surface level understanding of the story. On the deets, not so much. However, they are brothers, and they offer their sacrifices, or their offerings rather, to God. And Cain gives his whatever he gives, and Abel gives whatever he gives. And Abel is understood to have given, the fattest of his sheep, or, whatever, for his offering to God as a way of saying thank you. And Cain, because Abel is favored, in Cain's perception, he's favored more highly than he is. He gets super duper hella jealous. And God says to him, yo, bro, what's your problem? Why you mad, bro? If you do right, then you'll be hanging tight too. You have to do right. And if you don't, sin is crouching at your door, man. You're going to want to get a hold of that, because it desires to eat you and overtake you. And you have to rule over that. You have to get a hold of that, because, that's where your problem is. It has nothing to do with Abel and what's happening with him. He offered something that I gave favor, and you didn't. That's yours, friend. So rather than pick it up, that I really probably need to worry about what I'm offering to God, if I'm worried about God's opinion particularly. He apparently wasn't. He was worried about what his brother was getting. So he lured him into a field, and rose his very, angry hand at him and killed him right there in the field. And God came back and said, what are you doing? What happened here? And Cain kind of, playing dumb, that he said, your brother's spilled blood is on the field and it's crying out to me. What are you doing there, son? What happened? And then Cain actually, even though this was the first documented murder in the Bible, according to the biblical understanding, we did not know murder on the earth until that time. I can't verify one way or another. I'm just repeating the story, that was the first known murder that ever happened. And it was siblicide, of all things, a sibling against another sibling, one against the other, that of all things, it wasn't just strangers or a drive-by, it was a sibling, and very commonly tied to familicide as well, where a family member would murder another family member. So anyway, Cain looks to God and says, but if you send me off into the wilderness as a wanderer, as a nomad, and people are going to recognize me and know that I killed my brother, which this is news. This is brand new news. Breaking story, literally, for the first time on earth. It's you. That they're going to kill me. And Cain is actually given favor by God and said, okay, even though you did this, you're still, going to have to go do your thing and pay your penance, or whatever that is, however you interpret that. And yet, no one will bring harm to you, as in no one will murder you. However, I imagine, this is Kate throwing in a little bit of her spin, that Cain was going to need to be aware, and was aware, that you've done a naughty, terrible, awful thing. You've done a horrible thing, Cain. You went over the line. And that in his nomadic existence, even though he found a wife and, had children and all that, he still had to live with the fact, however many years after that, I killed my brother, that I raised my hand and actually, beat my brother to the ground and killed him, spilled his blood because I was angry and jealous, and it crouched at the door. That jealousy did more than crouch at the door. It came and consumed me to the point that I exterminated my brother from this planet. So that to me is a whole lot of, I would feel very guilty guilty and ashamed to even have considered the notion, but, hopefully Cain got the idea that that was bad, right? So anyhow, how does that apply, particularly at a time when we might be finding ourselves at a dinner table? Do we want to be sitting at the table with Cain and Abel, especially if we're playing one of those parts? Cain might be wanting to sit at the table with Abel, and Abel probably needs to understand what that table is all about before he gets there, which would be the intuitive nudges and the hits of, this is an engagement here where I probably would do myself a big old huge favor to not be a target of abuse, scorn, murder, whatever level of soul, crushing it would be and could be. And holidays are a time that bring out the beast in people already. They do, because it's high stress, and we're around people that we may not be so commonly around. And if you've got jealousy issues, sibling issues, or family problems in general, they're likely to come up even more whenever the family's all together and she's getting more attention than I am, or he's getting more, stuff or whatever. And it sounds so childish, and it is. However, we often, when we're near our family of origin, we revert back to the youngest version of ourselves sometimes that we were. And we go into those infantile places, those immature places, those wounded and, broken places of our psyche where, we stop developing in a certain area emotionally, especially when it has to do with, mom's approval, dad's approval, uncle, whomever, or even sibling approval. But that jealousy thing can really cause a problem. And when it's turned into not as in siblicide, as in I'm actually, physically going to beat down on you and kill you, it can look like some other stuff. And the holidays, be careful. I'm not much of a doomsday prophet or anything. I'm not into that. However, if you live in Hurricane Central, maybe act like you live someplace where hurricanes come in regularly and be prepared for that, and either don't be there during hurricane season if you don't want to have to weather the storm, or, weather the storm because you were prepared for it. And so if I'm going to be sitting down at a table, I want to know, is Cain at the table and my name's Abel? That's what I want to know first. And if I find myself at a table where Cain's sitting across from me and my name is Abel, then how can I deal with this? Because what happens is that when that jealousy thing grabs us, particularly, as I said, siblings are a biggie, but it can happen, absolutely. That can happen at the direction of a mom or a dad or something that's encouraging one of the children to go deep in for the throat on the other because they are jealous. It is all just an imbalance and a dysregulation of the emotion. But however it's happening, specifically I'm talking about tight family members, and siblings are often, they're the most non-lethal violence that tends to happen in families and in across the board. I'm understanding. Can't cite a specific on that. That's just what I read, what I remember. So anyhow, if we're sitting across from that, or we know that dynamic to be in place, be very careful to look out for the signs that it's happening, even if there isn't physical violence coming at you. Understand that people are right there at that trigger point, many of them, and they will use another family member, perhaps. In my own personal situation, it was used, my family used my children, as tools, and children that are already angry about mom's sloppy job, of parenting, it became very easy to use them as, okay, well, we'll build this whole dynamic, etc. And again, I want to say, if you've listened to my videos or not, I don't bring out my own dirty laundry to try to, shame or embarrass or harm anyone else. We have separate lives. I have no contact, and I have a separate name. So we've got separation between us that would not, call them out specifically or, name their address, let me dox them or something stupid like that. It's simply for illustration's sake that dynamic was so hateful and so jealous and so mean and so, all these things that were highly unclean, that my own children were used against me as a means of wanting to cause that siblicide. We'll just do it over here because I can't murder you and get away with it. Then let me see if I can just destroy you on some other level. And the other thing that I found was using familiars, cats, dogs, lizards, rabbits, whatever we have as our pet, our familiar, if that's how we identify with them. Noticing, are they sick? Are they acting strange? Are they acting bizarre around certain people? Or are they acting bizarre just we're in our house and suddenly, my cat starts yowling or something like that? Because people that are into very evil and nasty stuff, and they're willing to, do the narcissistic triangulation stuff and use your kids against you, they'll use your familiars too, especially if they're into the dark arts nasty and things like that. Then it's quite possible that they will be sending negativity and nasty towards an animal that they think can't defend themselves. Humans are a little bit more complicated and a little easier depending on, the dynamic that we're using to manipulate and, micromanage in one direction or the other. So animals, they're usually quite easy, right? And so a person could be sitting 2,000 miles away and think, well, I'll just throw some nasty stuff at the dog or the cat or the lizard or the rabbit or the bird, and it can really cause some harm if we're not aware of that, if we're not paying attention to the signs, if we're not looking at our familiars very carefully and doing whatever protection work that we might be called to do, if we're called to do that. And if we're not really looking around that Cain and Abel table, that's what that is. That's not Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter or birthday celebration. That's Cain. Abel, you're going to want to get up and move out from that table quickly before you get slammed or want something else that you love and that you hold dear. 11:11 is taken away from you. That's just the way this rolls, is that dark people do dark stuff and they'll use anything they can to make that happen. And using any form of manipulation that can be used, financial, emotional, whatever it is, physical. I've had people in the last 5 years when things were just starting to escalate, and they were starting to escalate for my own personal reasons as I was going through a divorce. However, they've been escalating exponentially on the planet for the last 2 years, 3 years, however long you've been experiencing the turmoil. It's been getting increasingly more and more and more and more and more bombastic, out, to lunch. People just, that hairpin trigger is right there, and the veil so very thin, so very thin, if not non-existent, at this point, that the energy keeps stepping it up and the chasm grows wider. So all of the Cains are really, really, really upset about the Abels, and they're not catching it that you don't have to believe in spirituality. You don't have to believe in the light. You don't have to believe in doing what's right. You can be all dark arts terrible if you want to. You can even, talk about spirituality and only know that I'm only doing the dark side of this. Well, that's fine. You can do that. I can't stop that. However, it's not going to be what's, going to prevail in the end. It never has been. It's just that the chasm grows wider between those two polarities. However, heaven and earth are coming together exponentially, hella fast. And so anybody that's sitting on the wrong side of this and not understanding that you're allowed to play the evil despot, you're allowed to play the murderer, the whatever, by my standards, I wouldn't, and I certainly don't advise it, and I don't want to be playing that part at all. However, I'm not the one that stops that. I'm not the Justice League or an Avenger except for myself, and that's where I listen very carefully so that I'm not sitting down with somebody hopping up over a table at me, screaming because I've asked a question that's triggered them, or because I just showed up being me and I already hate you. Give me a reason, let me just put my fist right in it. This isn't the time. We're seeing people, not just my pitiful story, no, we're seeing people all around the globe that are right there showing the most infantile and juvenile behavior, because that's where they stopped with their development. Many people are emotionally arrested way back into a period of time in their life when they had zero ability to handle their emotions, and emotional ability is off the charts. We don't have to go far to look around and see that. And so I would just encourage you that, as we're stepping into family gatherings, this is timeless. However, right now, it's coming into the holidays, and that's for the U.S. We do a lot of travel, we do a lot of get-together, we do a lot of that family thing. And so maybe pay very close attention, pay very close attention, and start maybe considering that if there's contentious relationship that was kind of 14-14 brewing weird at the last gathering, you maybe want to get a feel for that and say, is this seeming safe to me? I'm not into doomsday and all that stuff or being afraid. As a matter of fact, that's how I mitigate that fear bullshit and all that intimidation that can come in the subterfuge and in the ethers when people are just really, really working an angle of the dangle that's bad and nasty, is pay attention to that. And that way I can deal with it of, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to participate in that. I'm not going. I'm not a part of that. No, absolutely. And keep going with whatever protection work, if that's what I need to do. to protect me, protect my familiars, protect my home, protect whatever, if I know that I have that calling to do that. And at a minimum, I can definitely make the calling of, I'm not going and sitting in your presence. You know, if the last time it was already stepped over the line of that's highly uncomfortable, there's no justification, there's no reason, there's no, well, you know, that was just, no, this isn't a menopausal moment, this is not, you know, a moment with, you know, it's my time of the month, we're not there anymore. And so if you're hearing yourself screaming somewhere inside you going, no, don't go, maybe consider, you know, opting out. I'm not looking to break families up or tell people, you know, not to do things that, you know, if you're sitting around a table where you are highly encouraged, you're loved, you're adored, people are speaking to you kindly, you're speaking to them kindly, and it's a gathering of, you know, just amazing people, then please, you know, invite me. I'll be there. I'd love to be there too. But if it's not, if you have someone that's committing familicide or siblicide or some other side to you that's homicide of your spirit on any level, you know, or you're participating in it by going back and forth, or you get drawn into it, you know, that's a chipping away of our own soul and our own spiritual oneness and our own divinity. And we can, you know, absolutely reclaim those fractal pieces that we give away to those bullshit situations. However, why be there 1616 to even play at all? Because that means that we have to go back and do some extra work. And why? It might be simpler to just put the boundary down of, yeah, I'm going to be doing my Thanksgiving experience with some new people, 2,000, 3,000 million miles away, you know, light years away, even if it's only, you know, 3 blocks away. But keep that distance of safety physically, especially if you have people that are just right there with their eyeballs are already twitching weird and they just, you know, really hankering. We can get a sense of that. And so as we're moving into those times whenever we might feel very inclined to get the guilt trip call, are you sure you don't want, you know, all of that? It sounds ruthless and mean. However, I would much rather be sounding ruthless and mean than to be laid out on the floor or encouraged, you know, baited to start into some physical engagement where I'm going to get hauled off, you know, for popping somebody in the mouth or getting into some physical altercation, you know, or get hauled off to, you know, a mental health facility because I just flip off going, what is wrong with you? Because that's the trigger point, and that's the nasty, foul way that people will play, and that they do play, is find a way to push this back your direction and win, then yeah, and get you to sabotage yourself, then even better. My little mitts stay clean, and I've just spilled your blood. And God is asking, hey, excuse me, but the blood on the field back there is your brother's, and what's wrong with you? Well, it might not come as quickly as I want to if I'm sitting in jail, you know, wondering, how's this going to be worked out? It would be worked out better, Abel, as don't sit down at that table. So anyhow, I hope that's helped, and I hope that whatever your plans are for any day of the year, that you're finding pleasure doing whatever you're doing, and that you keep those people that are treating you well very close to you, and people that aren't, you know, maybe move out light years away, even if you live 3 doors away. And the more physical distance you can put, even better, sometimes even better. So 1818, take care of yourselves, and remember, get within your skin, because you're divine is absolutely fine, and it can help you to align. And if people are just rubbing it wrong and you feel that sense of, yeah, there's something here, please listen to that, because we're not in the time anymore where we really have much latitude to give people. They've already started to show their behind. Then believe them. When people introduce their worst selves to you, the worst version of themselves already to you, and it was a little shocking, please don't wait for them to give you the next version of it, because they're going to have to supersede what they did the last time. They got the update of, oh, that level of awful didn't work, then let me step that up to the next one. That's just human psychology. When people are looking to go into that, you know, controlling, empowering, and I'm going to do this, I'm doing it my way, and whatever that spirituality and God stuff is, you can suck it. When people are super committed to that, they've got to keep stepping up their game. So, you know, the idea is step up your game at least 1 notch above them, and maybe just not be present for the whole, you know, smackdown, that you don't get involved and have your name or your body or your anything dragged through the dirt on any level. So take care of yourselves, as I said, whatever part of the day you're in, and remember, get within your skin, because you're divine. It is absolutely, absolutely just fine. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye, friends.